Hello.
Oh my God, welcome back. It's been
Wow, do you guys come here often?
Guys, did you like our retrograde episode? Because we did.
Oh yeah, seriously, died and went to heaven and came back and did that episode because Stephanie and Elizabeth are incredibly sweet and insightful, and it was such a beautiful conversation. And it was very surreal because I've listened to them for so long, but it just felt like also just talking with friends who were giving us advice on our little baby podcast project. But yeah, it just kind of like humanized the aspect of a podcast that's so big. It's like it all just everything was from the ground up, you know. Got to start somewhere.
And it's like I remember this so long ago, but if you guys remember too, you know, when we were this is like a few episodes back when we had first found out that we were, you know, we got them to be able to interview them, and we were just like, you know, guys, this is going to be a big one for us, and you guys are going to be here for like a little milestone for Molly and Alyssa. And it was, and it was important for us to like, that interview was so important on a lot of levels, just because, you know, we learned a lot from them, you know, in general, because they're so smart and talented. But it's just like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of like a leveling up in a way of like being able to, because we're so lucky to have such a good, diverse group of a networking, you know, of people that we've known, we've grown up with, and that's great. But it's like, it's another level when you're introducing like professional, like industry professionals, especially in this podcasting industry.
Right.
That are, and they're so similar to us. Too. I don't know if you noticed.
I know, it's funny.
They're so similar, but different. And it's such a learning opportunity. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and like, here's to many more of those.
Yeah. And I hope it encouraged some of you to go listen to their show, because it is absolutely wonderful. It covers so many things. And yeah, I definitely listen to them.
And we could be talking to new people right now that Retrograde brought over here.
Yes, we could. Welcome, guys. If we got any of you over here, hopefully this episode lets you get to know us a little bit, and
I'm shy.
Enough to want to stick around.
All of a sudden, I'm shy. Don't look at me, guys.
But yeah, we were just going to do a little check-in and debrief. We do, you know, if we do have any new listeners, we wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to get to know us as the hosts of the show, to see if you want to stick around and hear our show.
Or not. You know what? Fuck it. If you don't want to listen to us. Yeah.
So yeah, what's new? Well, I have some big news for myself.
That's what I want to get to. I want to get to Molly's big update, because it is so good.
I'm so excited. I released my first single from my album that I have been working on this project for years. And with a lot of creative projects, you don't really know. You're not really in control of when it's fully formed necessarily. You think you are, but as you're creating it and you are growing and evolving as an artist, as a person, the things that you're going through in life, there were many times where I was like, because I have recorded tens and tens of, you know, like 50 plus songs in the last couple of years. And there was a part of me that's like, well, why not just, okay. But there's something you feel in your gut when you're like, okay, it's time. It's time and it's ready. And these are the ones that make the cut. And this is how I want to present it. And it just feels in my bones like this was it. And it actually, my album is called The Ripening, which actually was based on a poem that I wrote like 5 years ago. Usually my writing is just songs, but once in a while something will come out that just feels like a poem in and of itself and not really a song. But I wrote it and I called it The Ripening, and I was like, that's actually, and at the time, the last 5-6 years of my life have been really tumultuous and really hard and transformative. And so it's funny that the name came before I actually had come to a ripening point, because to me what that means is like it's the transformation of the transmuting of pain and struggle into something beautiful, into a work of art.
It's an
and
SOS
so that's
moment.
what this album has been for me. It has been the transformation of these really difficult years in the industry, in my personal life, in a lot of ways. And now I feel like have come out the other side. And that is when the song was released. It's like, just, I don't know. It feels very poetic to me. And just this song, the single is called Fly, and it's on all streaming platforms.
It is
and on
so good. I've been listening to it so much.
Really?
I wanted to like save like this for the podcast. Yeah, like I love it. Me and Ryan are both like, this is a fucking bop.
Aww.
Like you and Kip did such a good job with this single. Like,
thank you.
It's so interesting, like, because we just did an episode on like acting and like that. But like, as a singer songwriter, I find it so fascinating. Once you like, what is it that moment where you're like, okay, this is ready to be released? Like, because it's so personal to you. It's your baby for so long, and then all of a sudden it's like not. So that has to be some sort of like,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting because a lot of creatives say that their work is their baby. Like these songs are my babies, but I actually think that it's the other way around, where I feel like I am the music's child, where it's like
your destiny's child.
Is, you know, I'm a vessel in the sense that like when I'm writing it and creating it and recording it, but I don't own it. It's like I was used to get it out. And then, yeah, it is a little, of course, you're attached to it and it feels like your child on some aspect because you're so close to it, and then you're like exposing it to the world. But you know, while you might have like a mother births her child, but didn't create the soul that child is, that was already there and she brought it into the world. And so that's what it kind of feels like to me, where once you release a work of art, it is then doesn't belong to you anymore, because I can't control how it's received, and the purpose of it is to be received, and however someone receives it is the art itself. That's the purpose of that artwork. And so, you know, not to say you're not attached to how it's received. If people were like, this is shit, I'd be like pretty upset. But I know what you're saying, and it is kind of like you are that close to it, and yet you have to have no attachment to the ownership of it, because something like that can't be owned. I feel like I am owned by music, and that's not a negative thing. That's like who I am. But the music, I don't own that song. It came through me, and I'm the one sharing it. Yeah. But yeah, it's that's
so
it is
brave.
really personal.
Like the concept of releasing any form of artwork, whether it's a song or a painting, it's so vulnerable. And to get to that point where you're like, this is not mine anymore, it's the world's, and perceive it how you want to perceive it is so hard, you know? So the fact that you can get to that moment is amazing, because that's the thing. It's a joke. It's like, don't perceive me. I don't want to be perceived. Like, you just want to sometimes delete your Instagram and no one like, stop perceiving me. I don't want to be perceived.
Stop perceiving me.
It's like, I just say that to myself all the time. Like, I want to go out into the world today, but I just don't want to be perceived. I just don't
that word.
So, like
the feeling
just
of being
like
perceived.
Your body, okay. Like your the work that you've been putting so much in, and you're giving it to the world. It's such a big moment, you know, because again, people will perceive what they want to perceive.
It is, and it's like, you know, what a big lesson I've learned throughout the last couple of years of creating these pieces was separating myself from what I owe. Do I owe people anything? Do they get to dictate when I put something out, or how much I should put out, or what I should put out, or do I? Or it's relinquishing some of the control too, where actually it's just getting in touch with my own spirit and my gut instincts about my art, where there are phases where everything should come out at once, and then there are phases, it's a cycle, and there are cocooning phases to artistry where it's in today's social media world, it is hard because we are constantly told that we need to just put out content all the time. That's how you stay relevant. That's how you stay in the algorithm. Like there's no other way to be seen, you know? But then you see people in the algorithm and putting out content and it's ephemeral. It's like over the next week because there's more content. And so you're chasing something always. And if I'm going to be chasing something all the time, it can't be validation and can't be that. It has to be my own art. And so sometimes that chase isn't one that everyone needs to see. They see the end result of it, but it was years of me growing vocal. I mean, honestly, vocally, I've changed so much, and I knew that. But then when I hear like this end product versus my last project, last album I recorded, the last songs I really put out, which was a while ago, and it's like so much has changed in my writing and my life experience, and so it was a what's the word, like surrendering to my experience and what needed to be. And for me, like the lessons, I've been through a lot in the industry, and the lessons I've learned, they don't all, you need time to process them and implement them into your life and into your craft. And so it's easy to be impatient with yourself, but I really am learning to listen to my truest instinct about things and know, like, even when I was choosing what song should come first, it's like, oh, overwhelmed, you know, it's like, oh my God, there's so many. What should it be? I love this one, but I love this one. And I just really quieted all those voices and just sat with myself and was like, just think, just what it, you know what it is. What is it? And that was the one that came to my mind. Fly was the one that I thought of instantly. And I had once I sat down and really quieted all those voices and just asked myself, what do you already know? And I already knew that. And then I didn't have these voices like, but I also like, it's like when you really tap into what you know, you don't question it. And then after that, I realized the poetry of that song in particular. I started writing it in 2015. Wow. And it was the very first song of mine that Kip and I ever recorded or like started working on together. It was the very first song that I wrote that he and I ever worked on in like 2015. And then at the time I wasn't vocally executing it the way it needed to be. It wasn't fully becoming what I wanted it to be and what Kip felt like it could be. And so we put it down and started working on other stuff literally for years. And we never touched it again. And then this past fall, November, he brought it up again and we picked it up and it was magic. It just worked all this after all of these years of working on all the other aspects of myself as an artist. This one song was just put down and we picked it back up. Instantly, it was magic. I re-recorded all the vocals. He redid a lot of the music to it. I wrote the bridge and the other pieces of it just in 2020. And then I didn't even think about it like this, but I was like, wow, this was the first song that we recorded and it was the last one that we recorded and it was my first single, and that spanned the whole and that's what the ripening is to me. It's from that time to now. And it was just, it's very like bookends to a period of time that I'm
that's
trying
crazy
to show people.
It's interesting too, like that writing process. I saw something today on, I think it was like Instagram. It was like a video of, do you know the director Taika Waititi? He's a writer.
No.
He did like Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit.
Okay.
But he's really talented, and he was doing like a panel, and he was asked about his writing process, and what he does is like he'll write something, put it away, and then year later or a few years later we'll take it out and like usually be like, what the fuck, what did I make of this, and then throw it out and then recreate it from page one from memory by memory, just to see, like, you know, he'll remember the most important parts of that material to recreate and make it better.
That's a really I like that.
But it kind of sounds like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like you kind of put it away. You had like maybe, you know, a chorus or maybe something.
I had I had the verses to it.
The bones of it.
And yeah, the bones of it. And the chorus a little bit, but yeah, I know it's interesting because, and some works of art are the opposite, where it just pours out of you in 20 minutes and the whole thing is done and ready, and you feel that it's done and it's ready.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is like, you know, when people are asking right about your creative process, it's obviously, you know, too, as an artist in general, it depends on the piece I'm working. It's different every time.
Yeah.
There are similarities and there are some common threads, but no one creation or no two creations are the same.
Yeah.
And the process, yeah, I have some stuff that I didn't touch for years, like that one, and then they come back and they're like my favorite. I'm just like this one leads the pack because in all honesty, the last number of years working on the ripening, I made many versions of the track list and that was never on it. And so, yeah, it just really, I feel like divine timing and alignment are here.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it. I did all the background vocals. I recorded my own vocals on that, and I learned a lot about, even just like throughout the last couple of years, about production and engineering and my vocals alone, just the craft of it. And I also put out on my Instagram, I have a little, mollycottrell.com. I have my merch there. This was I designed. I spent so much time on my website and my merch, and I'll be having periodic throughout the year as I trickle out the singles. There'll be more merch drops and more items that I'm designing and putting together. So yeah, it's just been a little mini rebirth that I have learned to just, I read this quote a while back and it resonated with me because I was like, okay, I have all this stuff ready now. I've come to this place in my music, and you get impatient and you're like, oh, I'll put this out and then I have to do this and then I have to do, and it's the quote was, grow it like a garden. And you don't just like plant a seed and tomorrow you have a tree. And if it's going to last, it needs to have that time to have the roots. And I'm not trying to just have a one-hit single or just get one write-up. Like, I'm trying to build a sustainable, timeless career, whatever that looks like for myself with my artistry, and a fulfilling one, and one that stands a test of time. And that's not something that happens instantly.
That is so true. Also, I wish I wanted to have my Molly shirt.
Oh, yes.
But it's coming next week. So everyone watching on YouTube.
I just saw that yours shipped out. Yeah.
I'm so excited to get
coming.
But it's so interesting when you talk about that too, of like everything that you've been doing and like doing the vocals for, and then finding the merch for it, and like learning all these aspects, and it's all adapting, right? It's you're just adapting. We talked about this in our What Would Molly and Alyssa Do episode about like how to adapt in this world. And you were talking earlier about like the social media aspect of it all, where it's just like, I got to put out more. I got to put out more. I got to do this. And it's like, you want to adapt, but it's also just like you lose yourself in changing that way because, you know, what are you sending out? Is it authentic? Are you really proud of it? Or are you just pressured to do it?
Yeah.
And I feel like that comes from like the binge mentality that our generation is literally like you said surrender, like have completely surrendered to, for lack of a better word. Like it's just when all episodes are released on Netflix or Hulu, it's like, we got to get it now. We got to get it now. We need more content. And so that is going to trickle into different mediums of artwork, whether it's, I mean, mostly music, I feel like is a...
Yeah, definitely. I know. And the thing I've had a hard time with is I mentioned this before, but I have so many memories of the importance of the analog aspect of listening to an album. Like I understand people aren't buying CDs, and I'm not putting out a physical CD anymore because that's just not what it is. But it has to be a way to adapt, to bring that experience of holding that CD in your hand, pulling out the album fold out, seeing the lyrics, seeing the photos that were in the fold out that were not in you couldn't find them anywhere else. They're not online. Instagram didn't exist. They're not in any magazine. These photos were for the album fold out only. And you had to own that
and
to
for
have them.
you, it's
and
yours.
the lyrics were printed there and you just look over them all and all the fold outs are tattered. And I just remember looking at this Mariah Carey fold out for one of her CDs when I was little, and she was on the beach. It was like these black and white photos, just beautiful. And every aspect of the photo I memorized. Like, I remember this one picture where her foot was like partway buried in the sand, and just everything about it. You create a mood that's just like the experience of listening, and you listen to the whole album, and then you remember to the point you listen to it in its entirety as an album, to the point where if you hear one of the songs on the radio, when the song ends, you instantly hear the intro to the next song because you're so used to listening to the whole project. And there's a line between acknowledging like, yeah, that's not the way the world is anymore. It's okay. But that also doesn't mean you just abandon all that and just jump on the fast train of like TikTok trends. It's like there's a current way. There is a modern way to bring that experience to somebody. And I'm not going to give away my ideas yet because I'm really excited about it. But I did have a thought of like, wow, what today's version of an album fold out would be, and how do you create that? Because people don't, some people might buy, like, I want to have vinyl press. That'll be really cool for sure. And some people might buy it, but that's like its own thing. It's a niche thing, not everybody.
Now. Yeah, it's so
But
bizarre.
what is something relevant today that could represent that? And I have it in the works, so I will let you guys know. But yeah, it's just, it's creatively adapting without, there's a way to adapt without giving up and surrendering the things that matter to you and that you care about. Because it's easy to be like, well, I care about holding a CD in my hand and people listening to all 12 tracks at once, or all, okay, but that's not going to happen now. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you just give up on that concept. You have to get creative.
I know. And it's like, what voice do you listen to when it comes to like, how do I even like muster up my creativity if I'm not, if I'm not pleased with the way the world is evolving, or if I'm not pleased with the way I'm evolving, it's like,
what I think is you listen to the voice of your childhood self.
Yes. Because
I've thought about that. And that's my best answer I've come to so far, because I think about that too. Like, how do anytime it's going to be someone else that you're like, I go to this person for this always, that's the way I get through, it's still going to be slightly disconnected from who you are. And you can't go to your current self because you're currently in this world that's different and changing. And for myself, at least, I realized like, okay, I go to like my 9-year-old self obsessing in my room over staying up after bedtime and turning on my little light and just memorizing lyrics on this paper. And like, that is what the voice I have to go to, because that child was not concerned with, it was the experience. It wasn't, oh, it has to be an album fold out. It was just, this is joyful to me. This matters to me. This gives me something.
Exactly.
And I wasn't worried about staying in any boxes,
Yeah.
Kids have it figured out, man.
I relate to that too so much. And, we've been talking a lot about personally, and then you guys will see this episode about the acting industry and the toxicity that involves. So it's been a thing where I've had to like rely on that voice. I've had to rely on the child that's been wanting to act since as early as I can remember, and express myself in different ways. But it's tricky too, because it's like, I don't know, as an actor, you're like, I want to express myself, but how you're expressing yourself is through other people's voices if you're not writing
it.
So it can be kind of a mind fuck of just like finding who you are at the same time of literally your job is to be someone else.
Right. And to read words someone else wrote for you and to look like how someone else wants you to look to say those words. Like,
it's so...
Well, I was going to ask you in that regard, your writing.
Oh God.
Like you told me that you spent a long time not writing and that you always used to write. And then I'm wondering if in this context of this conversation, when you really get in touch with like your childhood self, because you're starting to do it again, is like that what comes out then, because you start to release yourself of these rules or these inhibitions or self-perceptions, or you're just like, and then you open back up to just writing.
Well, it's like fucked up too. Cause like I'm so thankful that I've gotten this bug again where I've wanted to write because I remember being young. This is like 14 was the last time I was like excited to write. I wanted to be a writer. Like I wanted to act too, but like writing was just like, well, this is the thing. This is why like I loved podcasting and doing this with you because this was control, right? Like I had control. I'm finally in control of an expression of mine.
And what you're saying, yeah.
Where in the acting world, you're beholden to whatever casting director, you're beholden to your agent, you know, of just like what I'm supposed to do in that moment, who I'm supposed to be in that moment, which is fine. Like you can turn off that like critic and do that and learn from it, but it's disheartening to not have any sort of control in the career you want to do. Right. So this was such an amazing opportunity for that. And I have to credit this podcast to eventually developing into so many other things that I'm doing, and writing is one of them. But I say it's fucked up because it's like, we're also in a pandemic, right? Like we've had to adapt this podcast into something, not something else, but like just adapt, right? In general. And we've also lost our day jobs from that. And we've had to fucking figure this out. So it's like, it's fucked up because I've had to get to this sort of rock bottom moment where you're like, you have, well, me specifically, because I don't have a day job anymore. It's like, now's the time, Alyssa, put up or shut up. Like, you know, what the things that are going around in here and the things that are going around in here, do something with it, because you're just sitting around and stewing in your anxiety and in your like, what the fuck do I do next? And you're not doing something with it. This is the time to listen to that 9-year-old. This is the time to not be afraid anymore of what you express and what people will perceive you, because it's just, life is too fucking short.
That's the thing. And then, yeah, you're right. And then when you look at your favorite creators, whether they're actors, musicians, even just like an Instagram feed that's someone that inspires you and that you love. One of the things for me, I'm curious if it's the same for you. There's a common thread. They're all totally different personalities, different crafts, different backgrounds, but it's this level of, I really hate the word unapologetic, because I feel like it's been commandeered into this like annoying feminism that's like, I'm unapologetically me. And I get it, but it's like, that word is annoying to me. But the common thread with all these creators and artists that I respect and love and that really resonate with me and hit me is that they are releasing their craft without explaining it. And they might do interviews where they explain what the song's about or their process. That's not what I mean. Without making excuses for any of it, because
it's also defending. Like it's a defensiveness to it. You have to explain.
It's like, I just want to put out, and like I said, anything, whether it's an Instagram post or an entire song or an album. Oh my God,
yes.
We all need to release ourselves from the idea that we have explain ourselves. If you want to, you should. But there are so many things where it's just like for example, especially as a new artist, because I've thought about this with Beyonce, who the entire world knows everything about her, or like they've seen her whole evolution. They've seen her be sweet. They've seen her be empowering. They've seen her be sexy. They've seen her all these sides of herself that she has now been able to express. And we all can see the multifaceted side of her as a human through her art. And she can put out a song talking about her hot sex, and people won't think anything about it, that, oh, she's just a sex kitten. She's just whatever people call females who sing about sex, because she also has songs about her daughter, and she's also put out songs about empowering women, and she's also put out songs about racial injustice. And she now, when an artist gets to that level, they are released from that scrutiny of perception to the degree where it's like, no one's going to hear one single song and think that one song is who you are.
Them.
It is accepted as a moment in time. Her angry songs about being cheated on, everyone accepts that's where she was at the time. It doesn't mean she hates Jay-Z, but people now see it that way. But when you're not Beyonce and you're just, and even to any level below Beyonce, it's like, you know, for me with my first, one of the reasons it was so overwhelming at first, like what song do I put out? Because I have like really like moody, I have up tempo, like faster ones, I have slower ones, I have darker ones, and then, but if I put my first one is what people are going to think I am. And then, and it's just like,
Right.
wait. You don't have to be in a rush to prove that you're also this and you're also this. That's why it's grow it like a garden and put out your first thing and then release yourself from people's assumptions, or make that post on Instagram. And if somebody's like, oh, she just thinks she's too sexy. Oh, she thinks she's funny. Oh, she's like so into her activist. Like, yeah,
Right.
I am that right now. I am. And tomorrow I'm this. And if you, people just need to acknowledge that everyone else around you is just as multifaceted as you are. And
It's so interesting.
if people don't realize that about you, that's not even your problem. And as artists, it's really hard to accept that, because you put out a work of art and then you know it says something about you. And then it's easy to be like, but I also want to say this about myself.
Stop
and just
perceiving
let
me.
one song do its job. Just say something, put it out there, leave the room.
Yes.
And then come back and say something else and leave the room. And the people who are still there by the time you've come into the room 30 times, they're the ones that matter, and they're going to know who you are.
Well, it's so interesting because like that's so true. And that's why I was like, that's amazing. They can get to that point where you're like, fuck it. I don't care how you perceive me. I don't care. I don't give a fuck anymore. Cause it's like, it's beyond me. And then I'm like, am I a bad person? Because I think about how I think of like an artist, and I would love to hear your opinions on like Taylor Swift. Because like I will have this gut reaction, because I've liked a lot of her songs and like what she stands for, but like I'll have this kind of like gut reaction where I'm just like, I am fucking tired of you talking about your exes and your famous celebrity relationships.
Yeah, you're tired of her talking about her exes.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like all of your celebrity relationships, like I can't hear it enough, because it's also like I feel, and this could be this, I don't know, internalized misogyny, or just like, I don't know what it is, of just, you're getting into these relationships and then like, but you don't want to be defined by them at the same time. So it's like, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't listen to her as much as everyone else. And it's like my own shit when I'm listening to her that I'm projecting possibly. Yeah.
That's fair and separate from the fact, I mean, that's what art is for.
Yeah.
It's to make other people listen and react and feel. And the point, and what it's kind of why I say it's separate, is because on her end, her highest self at her truest form, all she can, and I'm not I don't like Taylor Swift music. As a person, I think, or the interviews I've read, and like her, I respect her as an artist in the industry, and her, I respect her business sense and all those things. Her music, I don't like, I've never been down with, but that's the point. That's my point, is that her job as the artist, if she's doing it correctly, is to put out her stuff and leave the room and leave us here. You're not a bad person. We all, that's what we are supposed to do, is digest it and make us feel and make us think things. And so she, as an artist, she did her job. And then we as listeners are doing our job if we consider what it makes us feel. I agree with you. I'm like, I'm sick of hearing about like your diary entries about like how you're whatever, but I'm not her audience. And that's the thing where, that's why I said, you come in the room, say something and leave, and you do that periodically. And then by the time you've done it enough times, only the people still standing in the room are the ones that need to be there. And I'm not standing in Taylor Swift's room, and neither are you, because we're over it. But that's not her problem, because she just has to put it out there and leave. And so it's like, in that sense, that's the symbiotic relationship. It's like the audience and then the artist. Yeah,
it's like you feed off of what they are perceiving, and then you leave. You take what you need and leave what you want. And this is interesting too. And I'm thinking about this. We've kind of talked about this too in, if you're a loyal listener and watcher of SOS, we went into Molly's journey into this industry and the R&B industry. And like, I ask you again too, it's like, do you have that kind of thing that comes to mind, especially because you're in an R&B world, you're in an field world, what the fuck am I genre
yeah world.
Like, do you feel like sort of like when it comes to like making music and leaving it for someone else to digest? Do you feel an extra sort of pressure of just like, well, I'm a white girl in the R&B world, am I going to be perceived in this way of just like trying to make music? Like how do you reckon with that?
Yes, but I don't think it's a negative pressure. I think that's a responsibility that white artists, especially in R&B, are required to consider. That's your responsibility in your creative process. That's like the way I view it, where it's in the creative process of writing my songs, choosing the words that I'm gonna say. Yes, there's that pressure, but it's a necessary pressure, and it's a pressure that fuels me because I have a lot to say about those things, and I am constantly taking a step back and looking at what I'm saying and asking myself, like, am I missing something? Because I'm always going to be white. I'm never going to be a black person listening to my songs. So I take, that is a pressure that I welcome, and it is a responsibility. But then once it's released, that's when it's in the creation process that I take that pressure on. And then once I've made those decisions, said what I have chosen to say in the songs, in releasing it is the letting go part, because that I have already done those, that I've already had those thoughts, because it's constantly a thing. And I also feel like, there's a lot of like, we all know there's a lot of black artists out there singing about racial injustices, obviously, because it's their life that they're living and their ancestors' lives, and they're shouting for people to pay attention. And there have been white artists who have done that, but when I really look at the mainstream, I'm like, where are the white artists talking about this? And not just talking about it in terms of, can we all love one another? And in generic terms, white artists are very comfortable saying, especially white artists in R&B. It's like, oh, I'll jump on a song that's preaching to love one another and no hate. And why can't we all just, and they'll say, even now I'll say that George Floyd was wrong, or I'll reference Kaepernick, and I'm cool with that. But dig deeper, and the real meat of what you want to say, what needs to be said. And this is a sincere question, because they very well could be out there, but where are the white artists that are really saying something, that are not just jumping on the bandwagon of peace and love and I support Kaepernick and George Floyd's murder was wrong? What else? Because that's not enough. And that was a thing too for me with a lot of my writing does address that, and I was like really wanted to lead with that in my first single, and I explained the process of choosing my first single, and I stand by that too. So it was like a patience I had to practice, where that's a part of me and my belief, that is part of me and my belief structure that I want out there immediately. I want everyone to know this about me, and so you get this impatience to like, this needs to come out, and then then they need to know this too. Yeah, but it's like, it's a whole,
and that's a whole other thing too, because like, I'm going to bring up Taylor Swift again. I'd seen a clip of her documentary that's on Netflix of her talking about how, because it took a while for her, because she preaches feminist ideals, but she'll never use her platform. It took her a while to use her platform to actually talk about
politically.
Yes, exactly. To talk about injustices with Black Lives Matter or with women or anything. And there was a moment where she was talking about how it's like all of her people were telling her to to shut up and just make music. And it's like, when you get to that sort of, where you have like a huge team of people telling you that like know better, that are telling you to shut up and just make music, or just shut up and do whatever art form. It's like, it's like such a mind fuck, because you're like, you want to listen to the people that know better, but you also have so much to say that's influencing your artwork that you're releasing. So it's like a catch-22. If I shut up, will this record sell? Or if I am actually politically outspoken and people know where I come from, will that affect my record sales in that front? Like, it's like, what do you fucking do?
Well, and it's like, then you have to think about it like, okay, if they care so much that I don't say this,
Why?
it must mean that if I do say this, it is going to have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the angle that, no, I don't want to say should, because I haven't been in Taylor Swift's shoes, but I would hope if I were in that position that I would take that. And she obviously did, because she spoke up. So it's like, you really, I mean, it's easy to look around, like, oh, these people know better. They're telling me what, do they know better? Or do they just know
Exactly
how big your influence is? And they're trying, you know what I mean? Like if you saying those things wasn't going to have an impact on people,
exactly,
they wouldn't tell you not to do it. So then you just ask, do I want to have this impact or not?
Yep. It's also crazy too, because it's like, if you're going to be in this industry, like, you have to like know where you're coming from and know where, you know, like you basically, it's like, you know what you want to say. You've like made it I wouldn't even say passion, you know, we have this, it's like you've a necessity to learn who came before you in this field, and like everything that surrounds it, you know, just what's happening in the world generally. Like, it's so important to be an artist and to be well informed, to know like who came before you, because like it's gonna come out in your work when you don't know what the fuck you're saying and like who you are. Like it's gonna be so easy to be like, I can't trust what you're saying because like it's not based in reality. I think that was also an issue I had with Taylor Swift. It was just like, I don't want to keep using her as an example. There's like a lot of artists out there where I'm just like, we gotta like, I don't know. It's hard to like the shoulding of it all. You talked about that in retrograde of just like, you know, I don't want to wag my finger at artists, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's so important to not think of yourself as this monolith or just that you're
figurehead.
Exactly. And to
like, I am this, like I am now, I don't know, like I'm the spokesperson for this.
Yeah.
So everything I do has to reference this. That is the opposite of creativity. Oh, yeah.
I know. It's like you want to have meaning behind what you're listening to, but you also just want it to be like a fun bop at the same time.
Right. And that's why it's like giving artists the opportunity, or not that, artists taking the opportunity to be multidimensional, where it's like Fly, like my first single, Fly, it's like a summer jam. It's like chill, but it moves. And then it's like, but I also like, but you also sometimes want like something that's like more gritty and faster and like a real like up tempo live music situation song. But then you also want like a really reflective ballad kind of thing. And then you also, it's like, yeah, okay, so
do it. Yeah.
But how does that happen? One at a time. But artists have to take that opportunity. And that's the hard part, because especially when you get to someone's level like Taylor Swift, where you do have all these people in your ear and you as an artist are the figurehead, but there's a whole machine behind you. And so it's like you are being told who you are and what's resonating with people. And yeah, that's resonating with people, but why do you think that people won't allow you room to grow as a person the way that they do? Yeah. It's a mess.
It's such a mess, but it isn't, because like this is an important conversation to have, because it's like this is what we digest, you know, as consumers, but also us as individual artists, and like what we want to say individually and what we want to express by remaining authentic, by not feeling the pressure too much that it just makes you like not trust your own voice and being like, well, there's no way I can live up to what's expected of me. You know, it's like what I should be doing and what I should be saying. And like, you know, like you said, it's like what, you know, only can you get to the Beyonce level where you have all these different albums expressing different moments of your life. And like how I can relate to that is just like, well, I've been an actor my whole life and my peers know me as an actor, but if I start writing, are they going to take me seriously? When I started this podcast, are they going to take me seriously with this podcast? It's like you doubt yourself because you want to talk about something new. You want to try something new, but is that going to be perceived in the way you want it to? Well, does it matter?
It reminds me of what Elizabeth said in our interview with Elizabeth and Stephanie from That's So Retrograde. We asked about imposter syndrome, and she said, she's like, that's not a thing. That doesn't exist. If you're podcasting, you're a podcaster. If you're writing, you're a writer. Like, it's so much wasted energy. And I loved that because it's like, yeah.
Yeah,
so obvious,
we were
but
just
it's like,
asked about like what, and I was just like, I put writer down. You're like, Mom, you're like, Alyssa, put
Yep.
writer down. And I'm like, okay.
yeah, it's like, why do we think that we need to have been featured in the New York Times to call ourselves a writer? Like, what? I mean,
I
how?
know.
What?
And I think, I mean, this is a bigger conversation that we don't have to have right now, but I feel like that's a fucking symptom of capitalism too. It's like, if you're not making all of your money off of podcasting, if I'm making all of your money off of writing, then fuck you. You don't get to write that. You know what I mean? Like, but
oh my gosh, that just reminded me of something. This is actually a perfect thing to like wrap up this episode with, because it was this little kid I met the other day. It was like somebody's son that I know, and he how old is he? 11 or 9. Anyway, he was like was sitting there with me and another adult, just 2 adults. We had never met him before. It's our first time meeting him. He's very comfortable with adults. He just sits down, he just starts conversation. And this question that he asked to a stranger, an adult stranger that he's never met. And we adults ask each other all the time. It's like you meet someone and they're like, so what do you do? Like, what do you do? Even if you don't mean financially, how do you make your money? But it's like, what's your career? What do you do? He said, so what are you good at?
oh,
And that was like his genuine, like that's his first question that he really wanted to know of this person he just met. And I was like, oh my God, like, why do we not ask each other that? Not what do you do? That might be what you're good at, but that is not getting at the meat of who this person is. And when you hear them speak about what they think they're good at, that gets somewhere. And I was like, that is the best question. And I am only ever going to ask that now. It was so eye-opening.
It's so interesting. That reminded me of a lyric that like, I just figured out this was the lyric to the song, because I've loved the song. The song it Smells Like Teen Spirit, the Nirvana song. I've been listening to that a lot recently, and I found out that a fucking lyric in this because I wasn't really listening. And it's the line is, and it's so beautiful. It's like, I'm worst at what I do best.
Oh.
I'm worst at what I do best, and for that gift I am blessed. It's so, I love that line so much. And like, it's so interesting. It's like to ask that question, because that could be the reality of that question, because of like, you're listening to so many voices. This is what I'm taking of it. You can interpret this line in so many different ways, but like, why that resonates with me is because you can be listening to all the wrong voices, telling you how you should express yourself. If you're a singer, or if you're an actor, if you're just, being told to write only about this, or you're pigeonholed into this one role, or you're just a product. It's like, you're going to feel bad at it at the same time, and that's like the journey of an artist and what you want to express. Like, sometimes what you're good at is like, how do you tackle it? It's like the writing aspect that I'm trying to get it, or I am getting into. I'm into. It's
you are into it.
I know. It's so interesting, and I wonder if people can relate to that. And
I love that. It's like such a simple line, and if you're to ask a stranger that, very quickly, first of all, it's going to cause self-reflection on their part that they probably weren't expected to do. Like, whoa, that. I can't just blanket answer what I do with what my day job is, or that I have a family, or that no, what are you good at? It's going to force them to get deep with themselves. And then it's going to force it's going to force an immediate, like, I hate small talk. You skip the small talk. You just get right to that person. And I don't know, maybe when we make merch, we should just have a shirt that says, what are you good at?
Oh my God, I love that.
Because I'm just like, that is the most... I love it. I love it. This kid like shook my world up. And he's 11. He has life figured out.
You've seen Sister Act 2, right?
No. Well, you know what?
With
Don't
Lauryn
ask me
Hill?
these things, Alyssa.
Lauryn Hill.
I'm bad with movies.
But the one with Lauryn Hill.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yes. Okay, that's the one.
Okay.
There's a line in there, and I was a kid watching this, and I'm just like, oh my fucking God, this is what you remember, guys. There was a part where Whoopi Goldberg is going to Lauryn Hill, and Lauryn Hill is obviously like, she's playing this girl that like wants to be a singer, but like her mother's discouraging her from it because you can't make money. It's like this like catch-20. She doesn't know what to do, and Whoopi Goldberg turns to her and she goes, "Do you wake up every morning and all you want to do is sing?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she's like, "Then you're a singer. That's it." If that's all, when you wake up and that's all you want to do, then you're a singer. When you wake up and all you want to do is, and that's true for anything. If you wake up and that's what you want to do for the rest of your day, and that's what's like feeding you, then that's what you are, and don't doubt it.
Wow, I love that.
Anyway.
Wow, moment of silence.
My dog's freaking out. Come here, Mama. Come here. Close out the episode with us. Come here. No? Okay.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in for this one.
Yeah.
I feel like these episodes are important from time to time, where we just kind of, this is all centered around, these are SOS moments packed into this episode of just what that every artist has, every person has, no matter what your career path. It's just, and I want to continue to make sure our listeners feel connected to us and understand where we're coming from as we continue to bring guests on the show. But
amen.
This was good to, this is low-key a therapy session.
Yeah, it really is. And I hope it is for our listeners too, who have known us for so long, who have been following our journey, and this is who we are as people. Like, we have these conversations, and either with each other or alone in your room. And I'm like, there's no way we're alone in this. And this is why we created this podcast, is to have conversations like this. And so if you guys relate to this, like you said, please reach out to us on Instagram, the SOS Pod.
Yes, Twitter, Instagram. Join our Patreon if you can. We have different levels. We have $3 a month, $7 a month, or $11 a month. Any of it helps support us. We're trying to grow. And
shout out to Nija, Brooks, and Steve Ginn. There's like a couple of our patrons. Like, we love them so much. You're gonna get good. We gave them goodies. And like, we are so like, they Instagrammed it. It was so cool. So we'll shout you guys out. Like, if you want to be a patron, go to our Patreon. We're going to shout you out and send you so much love, because you deserve it. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you have podcasts where you consume it, YouTube, SOS with Molly and Alyssa. Just find us anywhere, y'all.
Yes.
Shout out to Black Lives Matter.
What? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I almost went on a whole tangent on that. Okay, I always do. Okay, so thank you guys for listening. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Alyssa Rosano.
And here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.